Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip. I don't need that shit cause I got my own now. I get hard, I get tired, fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything I'ma have to bring the whole that issue, cause I got my own now. I ain't hard, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm a mother just like you, and my son rides a motorcycle. So please check twice, save a life. Motorcycles are everywhere.
For more information on sharing the road, visit mass.gov/RMV.
Master Yoda I am. And listen you must to hulazoom.com.
The movie, music, news, television promos, trailers and videos used in this production are protected by the Fair Use Act. Section 107 of the Copyright Act. 1. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. 2. The nature of the copyrighted work. 3. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. 4. The effect of the use upon the potential market for, or value of, the copyrighted work.
The following conversation is real. It took place on Tuesday, June 8th of 2004 between a Blonde Star advisor and a subscriber.
Blonde Star emergency, this is Steve. Is there an emergency in your vehicle?
Oh my god. I've locked myself in my car and the keys are on the outside.
Ma'am,
oh my god.
Ma'am, I need you to calm down.
Okay, it's just that the windows are rolled up and I'm starting to sweat. My keys are on the outside.
Now, your keys are on the outside of the vehicle?
Yes, oh my god.
Now, does your car have automatic locks or...
Yes.
Okay, here's what I need you to do. Take hold of the inside of your door handle there. Are you doing this? The shiny thing. Grab the shiny thing.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay, now give that a tug.
Okay.
Did it open?
Yes, oh my god, thank you.
Okay, now what is that noise?
Oh, that's my door alarm.
Yeah, but that only happens if the keys are in the ignition, hon.
Oh my god. You know what?
Your keys are actually in your ignition.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my god, thank you so much, Blonde Star.
That's why we're here. Do you need anything else?
Blonde Star.
No, that's
Always
it.
on, because you're always blonde.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
This is blasphemy! This is madness! This is a boom! Broadcasting from the City of Champions, Brockton, Massachusetts, with your host, Keith Sinister One Hayes.
All right, it's your guy, Sinister One, broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are watching The Booth, and it is, wow, May 26th. I hope everybody had a great holiday, even though it rained mostly all of Sunday, all of Monday. We were able to enjoy some of Friday. Saturday was kind of overcast, so we were able to make some of it, but, you know, it stinks coming right out the gate. I got to thank my guests. for coming on last week. Last week I had Tamisha Civil was on the show. She was on this show. She was running for the civil council in the court system. They had a vote, an important vote last week that she had talked about, that they wanted to bring this guy in who was a prosecutor. It didn't get passed. So I'm going to try to see if we can get her on and see where they go now, because this guy was not accepted to be elected into the council. But I've got my first guest on with me, but I got to mention my supporters and sponsors, Michael Douglas Barreto, MDB Electronics. That's your Xbox controller. If you need to get it fixed or repaired, send it out to him. He'll have it fixed and repaired for you in less than 24, 48 hours. My artist, Vianna Marie, her music is everywhere, streaming everywhere. Make sure to visit and check her out. TacticalTargetSystems.com. Those are those zombie targets that you see me with at the range. So if you want to go check those out, that's TacticalTargetSystems.com. And then we have I Love Boston Sports, Marlon Williams, located down there at South Shore Plaza. Vianna Marie, pictured there. Kimberly Ann, Empowerment Photography. Ladies, if you want to take some pictures that you never thought you would take, reach out to Kimberly Ann, Empowerment Photography. My buddy, Daryl Smith, Underwatch Protective Services. If you need any type of security services, reach out to him. And then my buddy, Call Larry, if you need any handyman services around the house. Done. And I've got my first guest on with me, and the reason why he's on with me, and I got to applaud for him coming on the show, you know, at such a short notice, because you know, this story kind of just broke over the weekend. He was on this show before talking about this, and you know, he kind of was saying it's going to be hard work, they got to get this done. And we're going to talk about this. But first of all, I just got to mention also breaking news. There is a missing child. The first grader was dropped off at the wrong bus stop on Montello Street. This child was picked up in a silver Toyota with an out-of-state plate. The child lives on Mulberry Street. Right now, there is no Amber Alert. But please, 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 if you see this child in this silver Toyota in this area, please contact the Brockton Police immediately. Also, I got to thank my guy, Travis Partington, for coming on the show last week and talking about him appearing on C-SPAN. Again, Sinister One Productions, we do a lot around here. And the fact that my guy, Oscar Mike Radio, who supports veterans, has been on C-SPAN for a 5th time now. That's not a fluke, people. When you get on C-SPAN 5 times, that's not a fluke. You've been vetted. They trust you. They want you on. So big ups to Travis Partington and Sinister One Productions getting on C-SPAN for a 5th time on Memorial Day. And in the news booth, the guy you see in the upper left-hand corner, this is a guy I worked with when I had my time at the MBTA. He was just a local 264 union guy. Now he's representing other unions that you guys see, the IAM, the 32BJ, SEIU. But Mike is here because there's a huge story out there right now. And for everybody who's been living under a rock, the rideshare drivers have been trying to get unionized for many years across the country. But here in Massachusetts, it looks like it's finally going to happen. I've got the guy here who's right in the trenches, Mike Vartabedian. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you for having me on. As always, it's good to see you. You know, we spent a long time together at the MBTA, and it's always good to come on.
Good stuff. Now, let's kind of walk us through this, how this kind of all started. This has been a long process. You know, these guys, when AppShare started, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And then, you know, it was kind of like just a side hustle. But then people started to realize, hey, this is a business. This is you're kind of self-contracted. They knocked taxi drivers pretty much out of the window. I remember there was a time, I remember when Uber and Lyft wasn't even allowed in Logan Airport, you know, so the taxis would have their rights. And then all of a sudden, Logan has changed their attitude. They've got complete whole areas for rideshare pickups because there is a certain group of person who would rather be in a rideshare versus that. So talk us through this, man. Give us some education on it.
Well, for the longest time right now, these Silicon Valley multi-billion-dollar companies have been able to take advantage of workers by characterizing them as independent contractors. And in 32 of the 50 states, they have already codified that in law. And a lot of the labor law in some of these states, especially the red states, they didn't have to do much, that they weren't necessarily characterized as as employees. They were independent contractors. But in Massachusetts, we have some of the strictest labor laws in the state when it comes to the ABC test and testing whether someone's an employee or not. And now we're going back about 5 years now. So back in 2021, 2021, who's now the governor, she was the attorney general at the time, Maura Healey, filed a lawsuit against Uber and Lyft for misclassification of workers. Now, the backstory on this is California tried a lawsuit against Uber and Lyft, and they lost in court, saying that they were independent contractors. So what did California do? California adopted our language, which is so strong that it actually, if you've heard anything about the PRO Act that has been tried to be passed by the AFL-CIO and all the labor unions, the ABC test in there that is to test whether someone's an employee or private contractor, it came from Massachusetts. It's actually the Massachusetts model. So California decided to adopt that model. And then once they passed it into law, they re-sued Uber and Lyft for misclassification. Well, what happened was, while that court case was taking place, Uber and Lyft filed something called Proposition 22. And what it did was it created a new category of workers that Uber and Lyft drivers were always going to be independent contractors and that they couldn't be employees under this new state law that they're proposing. That passed like 65% in blue California. And why? Because the drivers themselves want the flexibility of being an independent contractor, but they are being taken advantage of by these companies. And as employees of the labor movement, when the labor movement employees, this sort of model and this sort of obscene money that comes from these tech giants is a real threat to working people. I mean, they want to create a model that you're an independent contractor, you have no rights, no benefits. They'll tell you when to work, how much you're going to make, and that's it. If you don't like it, you're gone. And that's really what a lot of these companies would love to do, including some of the companies we represent. They've been watching this. Cummins is a perfect example. They made what's called a flex tech. And a flex tech is basically an Uberized mechanic that they say, geez, a generator needs a PM over at this construction site. And you see it on an app and you touch the app and it tells you they'll pay you $400 to go do that. And you go there and the tools are there and the parts are there and you go do the PM on it and you leave, you get paid on the app and that's it. You don't get any benefits. You don't get health care. You don't get any sort of retirement. So a lot of these companies were looking to adopt some similar model. So we at the Machinist Union have been developing something for years. We started organizing, and I know I'm jumping around, but it'll all come together. No. I promise you it'll all come together in one story. So about 10 years, 12 years ago, we started organizing black car drivers in New York City. And then when Uber and Lyft came to town, we had formed already what's called the Drivers Guild, and we decided that we were going to try to help Uber and Lyft drivers, especially for like wrongful deactivations and things like that, because you can easily just be deactivated on the app with one complaint, and I'll get into that a little later too. But so we started trying to help them, and then we decided, wouldn't it be great if we could get them a real union? One that could collectively bargain for them, one that could advocate for them, one that could maybe challenge the due process in deactivations, etc. So we decided to develop a law that allowed independent contractors to unionize. And we came up with this law, and we tried to pass it in New York City, and it didn't pass. So back to Massachusetts, with all that back history that you heard. Maura Healey files the lawsuit against Uber and Lyft. And Uber and Lyft, right out of their playbook, do the same exact thing they did in California. They file the identical language to Proposition 22. They file it here in Massachusetts. Then they go for a ballot question. They decide to try to bring it to the ballot just like they did in California. So I was part of a coalition that fought back, and we actually got it thrown off the ballot because it was unconstitutional because there was too many questions in it. In a ballot question, you can only have one legitimate question. There's too many questions in it, so it was thrown off the ballot that year. But in that point, we decided to introduce our language that we had introduced in New York, but then I customized it a little for Massachusetts. And what it does is, normally independent contractors cannot unionize because it's creating a monopoly. The Sherman Antitrust Act prevents that from happening. But in the Sherman Antitrust Act, it says that the government can take an industry out of the Sherman Antitrust with the purposes of regulating the industry. And that's how our law starts. It says that Massachusetts will pull the TNC companies, the transportation network companies, out of the Sherman Antitrust with the purposes of regulating the industry. And it goes on how it would regulate the industry, allows them to join labor unions, create an industry council, and do the first ever in the United States sectoral bargaining, which means that it doesn't matter what app you drive for, what company you drive for, you will be getting the same package from them as you get from Uber or Lyft or whatever. So there's a lot of firsts in this one. It is the first ever union made up of independent contractors, or people who are treated as independent contractors. We all know they're violating the law here, but it was a settlement with the Attorney General, so they're not going to pursue them as employees. But they're going to be treated as independent contractors, but this is the first ever of its law in the history of this country that allows independent contractors to band together and collectively bargain. It's also the first ever in this country of sectoral bargaining, which means that it doesn't matter what company you work for, everybody in that industry is going to be held to the same standard. So we filed our bill. We had trouble getting it through. There's a lot of people in the labor movement, a lot of my friends that didn't see the vision and didn't understand how complicated the situation is and how complicated this Uber and Lyft situation is. So fought with them and argued with them, didn't get it passed in the first session. And then the next time around, I think it was then coming up on the presidential election, it was, we were still having trouble trying to convince people that this is the route to go. So we decided to go the ballot question, and we went question 3 on the ballot, allowing Uber and Lyft drivers to unionize. And it passed. 60% of Massachusetts voted yes to allow them to unionize. And that happened in November of 2024. And we've been organizing Uber and Lyft drivers ever since. And we, last Friday, got certified to represent 70,000 Uber and Lyft drivers in Massachusetts, the largest union organize and drive in Massachusetts history, the largest union organize and drive in U.S. history since 1941. And we did it. And those members now are members of the App Drivers Union, which is mutually owned by the Machinist Union, IAM, and SEIU 32BJ. And I will tell you right now that this partnership that we have with this SEIU is something like I've never seen. I mean, we together, 2 very powerful unions, were able to get this through and complete the largest union organize and drive in Massachusetts history. And I have nothing but compliments for our partners in SEIU. It's like we're one big family when it comes to this, and we mutually own the App Drivers Union. So they are, and we're still trying to figure out what it means that they're members of both unions now and then their own union. But the parent companies to the App Drivers Union is the Machinist Union, the IAM, and SEIU 32BJ.
Wow. And, I got familiar with the SEIU when I was running for Ward 5 here for city councilor for Ward 5. And, you're right. They are a pretty big union. Great stuff. It's great to see you guys link up and get these rights for these app drivers. What's going on, Edward? I see you listening. You're watching from Liberia, Africa. Wow, that's a far one. Oh, wow. Thank you, Edward, for tuning in and giving us a shout. 70,000. Wow. That I wasn't expecting that number to be that big when you were talking rideshare operate. Wow. And that just goes to show you how big of an impact that this industry has. I mean, this industry is putting food on people's plates for some of these people who've decided, hey, I'm going to become a full-time contractor. You know, you learn the gig. You know, there are people who know how to work it during Pats games or Patriots games or concerts, Red Sox, Celtics games. You know, they've come down to a system. They know the rules. They've got their protections in place. I myself, I love Lyft. I love Uber. I remember when it first started, I was out in Cleveland and I saw it when it first started. I'm like, wow, this is gonna kill taxis. I knew this was gonna come in here and give people the flexibility. So when you take this situation on, you've now kind of got this where it is. So what is the next focus of plan for them? Where do they go now?
Negotiations now.
That's what I figured. Okay.
So what we're going to do is we've got to now that we get certified, and we had our press conference announcing our certification today, we now are going to poll the members. We're going to have regional meetings. We're going to discuss what these drivers would like to negotiate. And then we are going to sit down with our negotiating team, and we're going to try to get this done for them. And this is going to have a lot of unique twists and turns. First of all, the sheer size of the bargaining unit, 70,000, means that we're going to have a huge negotiating committee so that it represents every culture and everything in this app drivers union. And it's a heavy immigrant workforce. There is, every time we have a meeting, we have it translated in 5 different languages while we're meeting. We have them live translated. And we're going to have those meetings across the country and then form a large negotiating committee with, obviously, myself and some others leading the negotiations, the SEIU and myself leading the negotiations. And we'll have our legal teams there. We'll have our comms department there. We'll have our strategic resources. We'll have economists, all things that these drivers did not have access to, they now have access to. And we're going to sit down and try to negotiate a fair contract that works for both the union members and the company and for the riders. I mean, I see some negative comments that people don't understand the situation with the app drivers. And I really feel like if they dug in, they wouldn't be saying this, but they're like, oh, there goes rideshare now. They're going to go up through the roof. They're going to be too expensive. They're going to put them out of business. And the reality is, when they hired these drivers, they were getting 75, 80% of the fare that they're charging you. Now they're averaging about 30% of the fare. So the company just keeps taking more and more from them. So the company can afford to give in some of their profits, some of the profits that these drivers bring them, and not necessarily have to go up on the fare and stay competitive so that they can continue to have the market and continue to be able to, I hate to say it, compete with taxi cab drivers and other driving companies. So they're gonna have to keep the price at a reasonable price.
Right.
And the solution is that they're just going to have to give up some of their profits to the people who actually earn it for them.
And it's, I saw there was a movie in regards to one of the ride shares, and, the profit that they make out there is just, it's insane. I don't think people really realize that these people are working for peanuts. Even though some of these people are making some good money, it's still just peanuts on what they're making on that opposite side, the elitist side, I always like to say. And it's finally great to see them kind of make some of that money back. Now, you guys also looking into certain type of benefits?
Sure.
Or maybe...
I mean, all that, yeah. I mean, we're going to look at... So there was a lot that the Attorney General took care of in her settlement. that was a lot of money that it cost Uber and Lyft. But we also, I think, might need to try to restructure that, because it seems like Uber and Lyft, they've found a way to hurt the drivers with some of that, and by some of the rides that maybe normally paid a lot better than some of the other rides, they now take from that ride and they give it to the ride that you didn't make a lot of money on, so that they could try to meet the standard wage for the state. So some of the drivers are complaining that the game changed on them, like you told me about, like, when sporting events get out and so on.
Yes.
That game has changed for them, and now they're not making as much money. But it's really, I think, just a matter of talking it through and negotiating it. And obviously, we're going to be looking for more money for the drivers. We're going to be looking for a fair deactivation clause, which can you imagine going to work and walk up to the door and realize that the door is locked and there's no one to talk to, and you're just fired? And you don't know why. They don't talk to you. They don't investigate. They just fire you. And that's what rideshare drivers every single day deal with. And some of these drivers spend big money on their cars. Right. They turn on the app and it's just off, and they can't go back on, and there's no one to call. There's no one to talk to. The appeals process is ridiculous, and there's no due process or investigation. And I've heard a lot of people go, so what you're doing is you're trying to prevent people from getting fired that maybe legitimately should have been fired. Absolutely not. People who legitimately should be fired, or people who legitimately dangerous drivers, or people who are rude drivers, should not be driving this app. That is not what we're advocating for. What we're advocating for is, let's be honest, we're in a union town, Boston, and a lot of college kids don't have money, right? So they're drinking at a bar one night. They decide to take an Uber, and on the ride home, they realize that if they complained about the driver, they get that ride for free. So what they do is they say, driver was rude to me. Driver was speeding. Driver smelled of alcohol. Driver did this with no investigation, no process. I mean, if the driver smells of alcohol, call the police. Call the police. Exactly. The person shouldn't be on the road, right? But what Uber and Lyft have done is just listen to that complaint, don't investigate it, and they literally deactivate people who may have been driving on the app for 10 years and never had a complaint, and they get deactivated with one complaint. That's not fair to anyone, and that's not what we stand for. So the people who rightfully get removed from the app and are dangerous or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, we're not here defending that. What we're doing is we're saying there should be due process like everything in this country, and that there should be an investigation. There should be an ability to say your piece and talk about what happened, and if we feel that the company's wrong, to be able to have an arbitration process and be able to have a neutral observer look at the case and decide whether or not that person should be terminated or not. So we'll be negotiating that too. That's written right in the law, that it's one of the mandatory subjects of bargaining, that they have to negotiate a deactivation clause with us. So we're looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to actually meeting with these drivers and hearing more ideas of what they may have. And we'll see what we can get from that. The nice thing is that if we can't come to an agreement, unlike in a lot of situations, we have the option to strike, but we also have the option for binding arbitration, which is unlike anything in the private sector. You don't typically get that in the private sector. So the fun part about being able to write this law was we were able to write in some stuff from our experience from the stuff that is not very effective in the National Labor Relations Act. We were able to customize and fix for this so that we can get a legitimate first contract. For example, if you don't get a contract within 6 months, that the state can send you to arbitration or send you to mediation first. And it's also, when we're done with this contract that you and I know as a collective bargaining agreement or a contract, it's also going to be considered state regulations, which means not only is it will be enforced by the union, but it'll also be enforced by the state. That's what makes it legal, because so that's what the Sherman Antitrust, they're regulating the industry. So what we know as a collective bargaining agreement will be known as recommended regulations to the state. and they're going to have to put their stamp of approval on it. It's good for 3 years, and they're also going to be helping us enforce that.
Wow, crazy stuff. So is there anything that I know this is kind of from the ground up, but is there anything that you brought over from your time of, negotiating at the MBTA that you've kind of worked into something that would represent these drivers? Or is this, like I said, is this strictly all from the ground up?
So, the stuff from it's the idea and the concept is from the ground up, but the reality is when you get to the table, negotiations are negotiations. And one thing that I have, as you know now, believe it or not, I've been out 17 years out of the shop. I've been a rep 17 years, right? I mean, time flies. Good thing we don't get any older. It's just time moves and we don't get any older.
Yeah,
But one thing that
Chris Gagney's in the chat with his wife Margaret. Chris Gagney was on the show last week, so
yeah. Speak of an old guy, there he is, right there. But the thing that I learned as a rep when I came out of the T is what I learned and how I learned to negotiate. It doesn't matter whether I worked at the place that I'm negotiating, as long as I'm surrounded by the people who understand the business and they tell me what they want. And then I have learned and have a lot of schooling, but I've also have a lot of experience, learned on how to negotiate that. So that's the purpose of not only having proposal meetings, but that's also the purpose of having drivers sit in negotiations so that when you pass a proposal across and the company comes back after a caucus and says, geez, I can't do that, but I can do this. Then you caucus and you talk to the drivers and you say, because we work for them, can you handle this? Is this something you'd like, or you want us to counter this, or you want us to stick with the last proposal? So what I do is I just try to get them what they're looking for. And I do obviously guide and add advice and so on. But the reality is that's why we need a decent amount of drivers sitting at the table to tell us and guide us during negotiations what it is that they want, what they can live with, and what they think the membership would want.
Wow. Chris Gagney in the chat. He just dropped. Great job, Mike and team. Thank you, Christopher, for that. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in. I'm on here with Mike Vartabedian, who represents the IAM, and he's working together with the 32 BJSEIU. And if you guys didn't hear the story, the big story that you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner is that the app drivers have won their ability to begin negotiations and, become that union and start to get some of these rights. One of the questions I do have to ask, and you know me, I'm big on this, but are there any protections that they're looking to put into place? Because as we do know, Uber and Lyft is also investing a ton of money into companies like Waymo, Tesla, all these autonomous vehicles, which once they really get going, they can come around and say, hey, these are testing out. They've already got 75 of these Waymo cars in Boston right now for 2 years now. So go ahead.
We're all over it. We're all over it. So
nice. I'm glad
we're already in deep on that. So
because I felt like the Teamsters dropped the ball when the Teamsters allowed them to take those routes from Coors and make them autonomous, going from Colorado to California with autonomous trucks. I felt like the Teamsters were dropping the ball. They got to get on this. They got to get on this autonomous stuff. I'm glad to hear that, man.
So you're gonna laugh to hear this, but I'm on a coalition with the Teamsters. It's called.
Finally they're getting smart. They're getting smart
on this Waymo issue. We call ourselves Luau, which is Labor United Against Waymo. And we have been fighting at the City Hall, Boston City Hall, to try to get a study or a commission put together to study the effects of Waymo if they were ever let in. We were able to squash legislation up the State House, at least on the House side. The Senate side, it's still alive, but we're hearing that we may be able to put that in study and get that thrown out, that Waymo tried to pass a bill that would allow them to operate on Massachusetts streets. Right now, they are not. They're barred from it. All vehicles must have a live driver. So they would need to change the law to allow that to happen. And even if, and I obviously say even if the union couldn't get them more fair, more portion of the fare, a deactivation clause and everything. Them unionizing to have one united voice to protect their jobs against autonomous vehicles, that alone is a huge win for these drivers.
It would be.
And now add in the fact that we can collectively bargain for better wages, better working conditions, a deactivation clause. There's really all positives from this for the driver's perspective. So it's job security as well against companies like Waymo.
It's funny, that must have just been recently, because I saw one early March on Old Colony Boulevard, a Waymo Autonomous. So that must have just went down.
So they had a live driver in the front seat, but the car itself was driving. So they had to have a person there to grab the wheel in case it did something weird.
I gotta send you the video. There was no driver in it. None.
Really?
Yes.
And what was that?
I'll have to send you the video. I was behind it, and it was on Old Colony. Took the right hand after the tanks, just after the tanks, heading up by the Union Hall. This was back in March, early March, late February. So,
well, maybe I'll have to be a whistleblower there, because they should not be operating on Massachusetts streets without a live operator. They don't have permission to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna check. So off air, I will check my videos, because I actually took a video of it, and it's still in my phone. And I want to say it was like late February, early March, and I was like, "Oh, there's a Waymo," and I sent it to someone. And you can't miss them. They're white. They got that stupid thing on the roof, and there was no driver on the inside. That's funny.
We're coming to a crossroads in this country for a lot of things. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that a little later, but come to a crossroads in this country that technology, as great as it is a threat to society the way we have it right now.
You ain't kidding.
And people need to take that more serious. And I don't mean that technology's bad, but technology can overtake our society and change it the way we're used to, and not necessarily for the good. For example, right now, Waymo comes in, you put 70,000 workers out of work in Massachusetts, and those companies that are, Google, that's running Waymo, that money goes straight to Silicon Valley. It doesn't go to Massachusetts.
Right.
It's Silicon Valley. Even if they tax them, even if they put some sort of surcharge on the ride, you're not having money reinvested in Massachusetts. So those 70,000 workers that were earning living, buying food, buying houses, buying, consuming products here, paying taxes in this state, that's gone. And this isn't the only industries getting hit. I know people that are in big financial institutions that were auditors, that senior auditors, people with master's degrees in economics, and they all got laid off for AI. Thousands of them. So I heard it compared to the Industrial Revolution. They're like, oh, unions and workers complain that, you're going to have robots fixing cars and stuff. And it's just like the, Industrial Revolution. They'll find other work for them. This is far from the Industrial Revolution. This is literally every job on the planet is threatened by some form of technology right now. And if you have millions of people out of work, how do you raise revenue? How do people live? And if the answer is, well, these tech giants put money into the government and the government gives people free checks, well, who's deciding how much money that is? I guarantee it's the tech companies putting the money in, right? So do we really want that sort of society? And people need to start really thinking about it, because it's happening faster than they think. With AI, technology is moving at an accelerated rate like we've never seen.
I tell people this all the time. People, if you guys know the movie The Matrix and the Terminator, the Animatrix is the prequel to the Matrix movie series. In the Animatrix movie, this is exactly what happens and what starts the war against the machines. The machines and AI start to do everything to where people don't work, and then everybody just was collecting welfare and partying all the time because the computers were doing everything for us. If you haven't seen it, people, check it out. It's
how many movies do we have to see to know how this ends? I mean, give me a break. Just go on and on and on, right? And yet we're just happily trotting down the path, skipping down the path, going, hey, look, we did the same thing. And
the John Connor meme is up every time I see somebody talking. It's funny because when you talk about this, I know one thing with the rideshare, there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable being in a self-driving car anyway. So hopefully that kills that noise also. But the other thing I got to mention is that my son Terrell, you know, you talk about jobs. It's funny. My son works for Safelite, glass replacement. He has his own van. He's down in Mattapoisett working off the Cape. He works Saturdays on calls. And, you know, he's making good money. And I said, Terrell, I said, be happy. Most of his friends don't have jobs. Most of his friends their jobs have been eliminated. I said, windshield install for right now, knock on wood, that's not going anywhere. So, you know, as far as AI and stuff, those type of hands-on trade jobs, let's talk about that real quick. How important is it? Because here in Brockton, I know there's some talk about bringing a trade school here. Trade schools need to come back, in my opinion. Let's talk about that real quick, being a guy who comes from a trade with me.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is when these, I call them unfair trade agreements, have happened over the years, it opened the door to shipping work overseas instead of keeping it in the United States. And really, it hurt the economy more than you think, because yes, you were able to get these products and keep them cheaper, but the reality is you didn't have a workforce that was earning money. And the one thing that we do really great in this country is consume products. And if you don't have the money to consume products, that's what drives the economy. So you have all this work that goes out of overseas, goes to China, and they're working for 50 cents a day and no bathroom breaks over there. And then now you're talking about, let's bring this work back in-house, so bring it back in the United States, or at least that seems to be the popular thing that the politicians say, although they tend to not do what they say they're going to do, right? Mm-hmm. So you go to bring this work back in, it's not just flipping a switch and saying, hey, we just set up a new factory, everybody go to work. There is significant training that needs to be done. There is significant education that needs to be done. We have lost a lot of the ability to manufacture. For example, let's take machinists. Right now, I'm struggling to find experienced machinists. With 3D printing out there and all sorts of stuff, 3D printing's become very accurate to the point almost the same tolerances as a real good machinist, right? And even working some of the new CNC machines and so on, you need to know how to do that, and you need some experience. And what's happened is a lot of the companies that have machinist work, like Raytheon, like MBTA, things like that, I'm running out of people to give them when they need a real machinist. So I started opening apprenticeship programs in each one of these companies to grow our own machinists and to train them a trade that not many people know. And we have a shortage of people like that because we lost so much manufacturing. We've lost so much work that people have not gone to school because there's no supply, there's no demand for it. So why supply, people with that sort of education when there's not much demand for it, because a lot of it gets shipped overseas. So there is an education that has to happen. There is the apprenticeship programs. To be honest with you, the building trades have an outstanding apprenticeship program, one that I am very jealous of. They have just an unbelievable program. And theirs is different. They're structured different than us. Like the building trades, when a building's going up in Boston and it's a union job, they go to the building trades and they say, I need X amount of electricians, I need X amount of laborers, I need X amount of this. And the union hall supplies those people over to that job. We're structured different. We unionize employees inside an already existing company. So that company's demands for a machinist, it's not that they just call the union hall and I say, oh, we've got a bunch of them just, on the layoff list waiting to come to work and send them over. No, I have no one. So I literally have to train them. So I had to do apprenticeship programs in individual companies. So each company, like I have one at the MBTA, and right now we've got 4 apprentices graduating out of Everett to be full machinists this August, and it's a success.
Nice.
You know, we had 5 apprentices, but one of them wound up quitting and leaving, and he moved out of state. But the 4 that we have completed the Wentworth program. They've worked hands-on for the last 2 years with another machinist at every shop's, learning the jobs that they need, and they're becoming effective, efficient machinists that the MBTA can use for generations to come. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, but there's a training program. To your point, we need to all be involved in this training, and the unions have been leading the way with their apprenticeship programs, which, quite frankly, the administration has tried to kill the funding to that, which is another issue. But we can get that another time. You know,
whenever you guys or anybody shares apprenticeship programs, I try to share them. I know there's one I'm sharing right now. Avon DPW is looking for people to hire to get into the DPW and fix stuff over there, because this storm, a lot of people had cut budget funding for the storm. They sold off equipment because we had 12 years of weak winters, no snow, and then we finally all got caught with our pants down when this storm hit. So everybody now is trying to fill people with knowledge. You know, you've had people who've left through attrition and all of these things. So, you know, it's out there. We need this. So we're at 7:43. Wow, we talked a lot. You want to stay on to talk some topics with me?
Sure.
All right, so we're going to continue on here in the news booth. In Braintree, 1 person dead after collision with MBTA train. I saw people making stupid comments. This was a 52, 53-year-old gentleman. The gates were down. The train was coming. He clearly drove around the gates, and the train struck the car, and he's dead. And I saw people saying, you have to be utterly stupid, blah, blah, blah. And me and Mike can tell people a lot of these times, a majority of these are not people being stupid. Sometimes it's elderly people who get confused, and they get confused and get on the track. But the majority number of these, and I hate to bring this up because people don't want to talk about mental health, but they're suicides. These are people who they know the train is coming through. I learned this through my dad, who was a high up on the MBTA, who told me that way back, there was a whole blogging page dedicated to suicide people, to which station you're supposed to jump at. Andrew Station was one of the main stations for jumpers on the Red Line. Why? Because suicide people knew through this blogging site that was the train's fastest point on the Red Line coming into the station. So you were known, if you were to jump, you are going to get killed because the train is coming in. And it's pretty scary that there is that information.
The least amount of security, because you can't cover every part of the tracks in every station and so on. And I think people will be surprised to see how many people try to jump down and touch the third rail.
That's right.
Suicide. I know when my dad was at the MBTA, he was a bus driver for many years, and repeatedly stories of people going down and thinking that that's the way to commit suicide, is just go down.
Sometimes it's not. Yeah, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it blows you off the track and then your life is ruined. My dad went to one on the Red Line where the guy was still alive because the Red Line train was acting as a tourniquet on his organs. And then once the fire department came and put the bellow underneath the train to lift the train to get him out, everything fell out and the guy bled out and died on the scene. So, you know, there's just horrific stories. But yes,
no matter how you look at it, it's tragic. It's tragic, whether it's mental illness, whether it's an elderly person confused, whether it's somebody with special needs that's confused, or whether it's someone committing suicide. It's tragic, and you know, we need people with we need mental health in this country. We need mental health services.
Yeah.
We need people to understand other people have challenges.
And I've got to commend the T, because in some of these cases, I know the young girl in Abington who committed suicide and crossed, she went through everything. And the T still paid. The T still paid the family out because it was just a tragic story. And I applaud the T for that, because legally, the T doesn't have to. They can say, We're sorry that your daughter had mental illness. We're sorry this. But the T still pays, and I don't think the T gets their credit.
How does that look, right? So you're the MBTA, right? And you've got somebody who's going to make an argument that you should have made the situation more secure. And the T's going to fight that in court, and maybe they win, maybe they don't, right? It depends on what if you have a jury and stuff. But it's also the whole time you're fighting it, you've got someone saying, okay, so someone who is in an unfortunate situation and you're going to fight them on this, and maybe you did have some responsibility on it, settling it sometimes is the better thing to do. And, I know people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear, oh, well, my tax dollars. Well, think how much tax dollars go to fighting that in court. And if you have any responsibility, which you can't cover every single safety issue, you can't. When you have big equipment moving around at that speed, you can't absolutely protect absolutely every scenario. You can't. And I think that T is a very secure place, and I think it's getting even more secure under Phil Lang. I think, in my opinion, he is one of the best general managers the MBTA has ever seen. Wow. And I mean, sincerely, and you know me, I don't throw compliments either. I'm a more Debbie Downer, like, well, this guy does that. This guy is the real deal. This guy's the real deal. He really is. He's a very educated person. He's a fair person. He's a person you can talk to. And he has been slowly chipping away at the infrastructure that's falling apart. He's been repairing it. And it's not a coincidence that you haven't seen trains catching fire like you did under the Baker administration. That train accidents, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all down because of the work that he's doing. And the whole story, 10 years in the woods and 10 years out. That's what he's doing. He's slowly chipping away at this, but he's improving the MBTA. He's improving the morale. He's improving the entire experience for the riders of the Commonwealth. So I applaud him for that. I don't necessarily always agree with him on everything, but I would argue he's probably one of the best GMs we've ever had.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great stuff. So again, that's a great story. Let's move on to the entertainment booth. In the entertainment booth, we got a rest in peace to Rob Bass. Fuck cancer. Took Rob Bass from us at 41. Also in the entertainment booth, Quita Brunson, who was on Abbott Elementary. She has been now hired. Well, she's going to play Betty Boop in the major film that's going to be released. And I see all these MAGA people and stuff. They're pissed off at the fact that Quita Brunson, who is a black woman, is playing Betty Boop. You all seem to forget that Betty Boop was based on a black jazz singer, and then that character was whitewashed to get put onto television. So this was a character that was originally black, but was taken from the culture. So they're only just reverting back to the origins of the character. So please stop it. Sit down.
Facts don't matter anymore, Keith. Don't worry about it. Facts don't matter, and history doesn't matter anymore. Yeah,
exactly.
We ignore all that now. We just move forward. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto, November 19th. Guys, ladies, your boyfriends are going to be gone on this date. Wolverine, exclusive to PlayStation, only PlayStation 5, which means I'm probably going to have to buy a Sony PlayStation now. And then in the sports booth, I only got one story in the sports booth to cover because we're going to cover this tomorrow on Drafting the Circuits. Kyle Busch, 41 years old. He was racing with double pneumonia. The next day he did another race, and then he was throwing up blood. His pit crew chief finds him collapsed, and they call it in. And Kyle Busch, and it's crazy because it's Memorial Day weekend is the week he passes away before, when you have them. The Indy 500, so the tributes were crazy. We're going to talk about this in detail tomorrow on Drafting the Circuits. Chris Gagney in the chat is asking, how did the guys do in Salt Lake City? I don't know what that is. I think that's for you.
Salt Lake City. Talking about what's he talking about? MBTA rodeo or something, or what's he talking?
Must be, yeah, must be. Is that out there? The NAPTA? Is that out there again this year?
Yeah, trying to think of where the location is. I got to be honest with you. I've had Jamie Joyce, one of our business reps, help at the T. He's one of our business reps now.
Yeah.
have him help me at the T, and I brought on Chris Stroud from UPS he was our chief steward at UPS as a business rep while we were working on this historic drive. So there's some details that I don't know. I if he's referring to the rodeo, I don't know how we.
Chris, put that in the chat if you can.
I don't know if they've even been there yet. Have they been there? They might have been there yet by now.
Yeah, I'll wait and see if he answers in the chat.
Okay.
UPS, didn't they get a big concession that they finally got AC in their trucks after a long battle? Isn't that something that they just got recently?
Yeah, the Teamsters got that in their contract a couple of years ago, and our contract was the year after because we have the mechanics at UPS, or a lot of the mechanics at UPS, and they've got the drivers. I think they have I want to say 350,000 members there. So it's one of their largest employers, and they got those concessions, but we also have some problems here. Amazon is just like every other company that they've messed with is doing some damage to UPS. And what they started off doing was Amazon started using UPS for all their deliveries, and Amazon and UPS at one point, it was about 40% of their business was Amazon deliveries. And then Amazon started delivering their own stuff, and they pulled back. And so what you saw now, you see UPS resizing back to where they were. But then now Amazon's gone on the offensive, and they say, oh, by the way, we're going to start offering delivery to companies now. So now they're trying to compete with UPS. So we have some challenges there, and we need Congress to rein in Amazon because they're becoming a huge monopoly.
Yes, they
and
are.
They're destroying everybody. I mean, think about this. You want to sell a book. Let's say you write a book. If you don't sell it on Amazon, you're not selling it, right? What do they do? They turn around and say, okay, well, that cost you $20 to produce, or let's say $10 to produce, and you want to sell it for $20. You're going to sell it to me for $11, and I'm going to sell it for $20. And if you don't accept my offer, you're not getting anything. And that's what they do. And they put even, people out of business that way. They put small businesses under. They've been doing a lot, and now they're breaking into all these other industries.
Yeah. So the most recent one that scares me is they're about to put CVS under now that they've got pharmaceuticals. And you can just simply upload your prescription and your ID now to Amazon, and if you're approved, you can have your prescription shipped to your house. That's gonna put CVS. That's gonna take all the elderly out of the CVS's and have all their stuff shipped to their houses. That's just
speaking of a movie buff. Who was it was Sylvester Stallone. It was
Demolition Man,
right? They talk about Taco Bell as the only restaurant that survived the restaurant wars. Well, Amazon's going to be the Taco Bell. They're gonna wind up putting everybody under. And you want to buy anything, you want to do any business, you want to do anything, you're going to have to go through Amazon. And that's what Congress is supposed to prevent, this sort of monopolization of industries and so on. They have stepped in the past, and they're not doing it now. Why? Because they're a big donor towards the Republican Party.
That's right. Chris Gagne did say it is the rodeo on there. So let's get into the legal booth. In the legal booth, to close out this show, I'm going to have a video from ABC speaking about the fact that in this deal that I'm about to mention, this $1.8 billion fund that's going out to J6ers and other idiots, the IRS is barred from audits of the Trump and the Trump family. And I'm pissed at this because on this show, I talked about this whole deal that went down with the drones. Trump comes in, and then I have a drone. I own a drone. I'm a drone pilot. I have 2 drones. DJI was the top of the line drones. Trump and his son comes in, and they put this scare tactic out there that China was taking all your info, and we can't have DJI drones in this country because they're this. And I was like, this is a bullshit story. The problem here is that your elitist buddies who felt like the drone community wasn't going to get big or blow up or the hobby was going to get huge, you found out that it did get huge. And because of that, DJI has kind of monopolized the drones. So what did you do? You banned DJI from coming into this country. Then you hand off a drone company that's out of the Ukraine to come in and take over a defense budget for drones in the U.S. military and give it to your son and another nitwit. And you didn't put the bid out the contract. It's not a union job. You're going to take them drones from the Ukraine, which aren't made in America, put a U.S. label of the U.S. label. This is just corrupt. This is just the top of the stuff that I'm talking about here. The IRS. Not to mention that with every assassination attempt that has happened to Trump, guess what happens, people? All of his golf courses and properties are all getting all these security upgrades on our dollars. And when Trump leaves office, guess what happens? If he decides, I want to sell Mar-a-Lago to some Middle East country, guess what? He's going to get top dollar that I just can't keep going on. I'll be pit. That's a whole nother show. Mike, I'm going to let you speak on that real quick.
It's sickening, okay? And when you talk, I have some friends that are Trump supporters, and when you try to talk to them, they regurgitate lines like fake news. Like instead of acknowledging the truth, their immediate response is fake news. And it really is a psychological response because they don't want to admit that what they're seeing in front of their eyes is that they were hoodwinked by a con man who is literally trampling on the Constitution, destroying this country and its democracy, and creating his own slush fund for his supporters, enriching him and his family and his friends off the backs of us, and ignoring guardrails and protections that we have put in place for years. And the whole Republican Party is part of it because they control both the Senate and the House, and they're not holding this president accountable for his lawlessness is really what he is. And I mean, what happened to this talk, and it really is a con job of they're the party of law and order. They're the party of crimes and cover-ups and protecting criminals. I mean, it's the complete opposite of what they're saying. They themselves are violating the law. They themselves are allowing their president to violate the law. And they're enriching people who literally assaulted police officers at the Capitol, killed some, and caused brain damage to some, permanent physical damage to them. And they're talking about giving them money out of a slush fund. I mean, what world are we living in that's even cool? I don't understand the logic. And all people say, well, they were wronged. Well, no, they weren't. I saw it with my own eyes. We all saw it with our own eyes. And every one of them were convicted either by a jury or they admitted to the crime. They confessed and said, yes, I did that. And so they weren't wrongfully prosecuted. They were prosecuted, they got due process, and they were found guilty. This is, and a lot of them by Trump judges. So this is not some Democratic conspiracy to go after people who are supporters for Trump. These were real insurrectionists that caused not only injuries but deaths and tried to overthrow our democracy. And not only did we pardon them all on day one, but now we're going to give them money and congratulate them for the damage that they did. It's appalling. And we all have to show up this November and flip that House and that Senate and try to stop the bleeding of this country.
Yeah, we really need to. And, it's funny that the hypocrisy in this whole thing is, when January 6th happened, the MAGA people were all saying, well, it's all Antifa and FBI agents that did that. Now it's like, okay, but now all of a sudden you're saying, well, they should get paid. What do you mean they should get paid? Because 2 years ago, you all were saying that it was Antifa and FBI people that did this. So y'all, the
FBI people
crazy.
I get enraged. How are they FBI people? Who was the president for the 4 years prior to that, and trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power? It was President Trump's FBI agents. So let me guess. Biden somehow had some in the FBI and orchestrated all the FBI agents to go to January 6th and cause a riot to overturn the election that he won I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's
it literally is mental illness if you believe that.
Yeah, it is just crazy. And some of the people on my site, people say, Keith, just block them, and I can't, because my thing is when you block them, they can plot in silence. You don't know what they're up to, and I want people to see the craziness that's out there.
I'd rather have the open debate, even if I'm banging my head against the wall after it.
Yeah.
It's not only the person who you're debating with, but it's all the people watching too, and listening to that debate, and understand that one person is making some pretty valid points, and the other person is just going fake news.
Yeah,
so
I've got some.
I would prefer to debate with them.
I've got the MAGA twins on my page, Neil and Nov on MAGAs. All they do is just share useless memes in the debates. It's crazy. Also, in Trump troubles, Tulsi Gabbard has stepped down, and she is saying she is citing her husband's bone cancer. Now, let me just say this first and foremost. Fuck cancer. I feel for her husband. It does suck. But for me, and I've got a lot of people coming at me saying, I didn't turn nothing into nothing. Tulsi Gabbard made a comment about Iran and felt that this was a lie from the get-go. And I feel like when you have been involved with politics...
It was a kiss of death. It was a kiss. I knew she was gone as soon as she said it.
Yep. When you look at a way to get out without being vilified, because everybody who's left the Trump administration, he's found a way to vilify him. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, everybody who is left, he makes them look bad. Tulsi Gabbard has been wanting to get out. She's using this, and I hate to say it, she's going to use this as her out to get out, and she can't be vilified. And people, you dumbasses seem to forget, when Trump was trying to get that Republican nomination, who was the last person who fought tooth and nail till the very end? It was Tulsi Gabbard, who didn't want him getting the nomination. Then she sold her soul to become part of that cabinet, people. So
look at Rubio, the same thing. Look at that whole cast of characters. I mean, you just Lindsey Graham. I mean, talking about him as a kook and a bigot and a racist, and then 2 minutes later, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread because you get him.
Vance.
It's absolutely J.D. Vance, another example, right? It's crazy, and I can't see that. I can't believe that your average person just can't see the absolute hypocrisy and craziness of this entire administration. It's something like we've never seen in this country, and it's shocking for sure.
Yeah. Mike already broke down the Senate Republican revolt over the 1.8. I think he said it nicely. There's nothing for me to add. And then also the House limits Trump's Iran war powers. 4 GOP members flipped, giving Mike Johnson a serious headache. This is real good. We're going to have to see where this heads. If they completely take those powers away from Trump, then maybe we can stop some of this bleeding, because the art of the deal is not the art of the deal. This is a guy who ripped up a perfectly good agreement that was in place by Obama with Iran. There was no proof that they had uranium. He tore that up. He came in, and then he kind of put the same exact plan on the table. And for me, I feel like Trump's Iran is Putin's Ukraine. It's the biggest political black eye of his career.
I'm going to go out on a limb on this one.
Okay,
I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. All right. My guess is he comes back with a deal that's far worse than we had with Obama. Far worse. Like paying the money, repairing the damage that we did over there with bombs, unfreezing their assets, things like that, and somehow giving them some sort of control over the strait. And that is a far worse deal than we had under the Obama administration. He just ripped that up because it had Obama's name on it, and then he had no plan to fix anything. And then he wanted to go in there and I believe he got in there because of Israel, and here we are now stuck in this mess. And the one thing that got him elected was he went around and lied to everyone. He's going to bring the price, the cost of living down, and one day the cost of gas will be under $2 a gallon. The cost of living will go down. The inflation's going to go away. Where are we now, people? Where are we now? Okay.
None of that has happened. Before we get into my outro, before I get into my outro banners, Mike, just tell them how they can follow you, get any information on you. And please, if you get that stuff, any more apprentice program stuff from any of the unions, please send that my way so I can add it to my upcoming events, but let people know how they can follow you.
Sure. Listen, if you're looking for a union and you're interested in a union, you give us a call, District 15. We're out of Northborough. You can look us up online. It's IAMAW District 15. Look us up. We'd be happy to talk to you. If you don't like what you hear from us, I would advise you to go look at other labor unions even. To me, everybody should have a voice in the workplace, should have the ability to have some say in how their working conditions are and be able to negotiate a fair share of the profit that you make for these companies. So if you are looking for a union, we'd be honored to sit down and talk with you and try to help you. And feel free to reach out.
And one thing I hate with this younger generation, and I want you to just kind of address it real quick, is one of the things I see on social media is people say, well, why should I give a union my hard-earned working money every week? I hate that.
Well, that's corporate. So that's corporate banter, okay? So corporations have found creative ways to try to scare people away from unions. All people have to do is literally look at the facts, which I know that we don't do in this country lately. But if you go on the Department of Labor website, the government website, and you look up union versus non-union, you will see that in every category, union people make more. They have better retirements. They have better health care across the board. On an average, they make over $1 an hour more in wages, and that's on an average, right? Some are significantly higher. And if you do the math, let's say your dues is $50, or let's say it's $60. In some shops, it's more, $100, but they're also making significantly more money than they would have made outside of a union shop. But let's say it's $60 for sake of argument. If we came in and at least got the average of what a union, worker normally gets, $1 an hour, think about that. That's $40 extra a week. So in a week and a half, that dues is paid for, and the rest is profit in your pocket that you would have never had without a union. And that's what wages alone. So don't fall for the corporate banter. I've heard corporations go, what? Whenever you do an organizing, why do you want to join a union? They're going to take your dues money. Well, dues is equivalent to about a cup of coffee a day. And I never heard a corporation worry about you spending too much money at Dunkin' Donuts. So why are they concerned about your dues? They're not. They're concerned about your power. And they want to scare you away by saying being in a union costs you. You've heard that line, being in a union doesn't cost you. It benefits you. So go look at the facts, figure it out. It doesn't cost you money. You actually earn more money, and the dues is to help protect that contract that you negotiated with your members and the chief negotiator. So don't fall for the corporate banter, and don't fall for the brainwashing. That's all a scheme by corporate America to try to prevent unions. And so was the gig economy. If we're going to be honest, the gig economy was to avoid unionization. How'd that work for him?
That's what I said. I said, when he came in here and started getting rid of all these government unions, I said he was straight union busting. So, this was a big deal. Before I get into my outro band, is also, Mike, midterms is coming up. Very, very important. Who are the unions supporting? Can you kind of give us an idea of who people should be looking at when they're going to the ballot box? And
so if we're talking Massachusetts,
yes.
We endorsed for Seth Moulton's open seat. We've endorsed Dan Coe. He is former chief of staff to Marty Walsh. Also worked with Marty at the Department of Labor when Marty went over there. He's the real deal. And anybody up in his district, please cast a vote for him and tell everybody up there, if you support labor, if you support the things that we do, the right to a living wage, the right to retirement, and so on. He's our candidate, and he's the one that we have endorsed. Also, it was a tough choice between Senator Markey and Congressman Moulton. It's always tough when you have two people that live in view the world the way we do about the labor movement and so on. But we have endorsed Senator Markey in that race, and I know there's all sorts of people say, well, he's been around long enough, and he has been 100% voting record for Labor. So if you're a Labor person, he's 100% voting record for Labor. He's been very supportive in this app drivers union and been there for members at the MBTA when he helped with the congressional delegation to write a letter to the governor to demand that he sit down and negotiate with us. So we have endorsed Senator Markey. Congressman Moulton's wonderful. I love him. I had a great relationship. I've had a great relationship with him over the years. It's just unfortunate you have to make a choice. You can't have them both sitting in that seat. Right, so, those are the two big ones for the federal. We have a list of people statewide and so on, but I could go on forever. We go through a lengthy process in endorsing. We put out a questionnaire. We bring them in front of the state council and we interview them, and then we give our recommendations to the membership, and the membership votes whether or not to support the recommendations. So we have a lengthy process, and we've been hitting that heavy.
I was involved with that when I ran Ward 5. I actually had to go to the SEIU when I got my invite, and that was pretty nerve-wracking, and I've done a lot of stuff. So I'll try to get you back on before the primaries in September. We'll kind of see who's on, because, I mean, it is early. It's May. Let me get into my outro banners here before we get out of here. Those are the hats and the beanies that I had. Those are now sold out. I want to thank everybody for supporting the show with that right there. Those are the shows that I produce. The Booth, which you're watching, Oscar Mike Radio on Thursday nights, Drafting the Circuits tomorrow night, Turnbuckles and Spilt Liquor tomorrow night. Tony Rodriguez is running for state rep. His kickoff campaign is Thursday night, 6 to 9 at Tambu Bistro. There it is right there. He's running for state rep for the 10th Plymouth District against Michelle Dubois. Saturday, May 30th is Method Man Redman. The LGBTQIA flag raising ceremony takes place June 1st at City Hall here in Brockton. Bat Bus ride free till June. Moses Rodriguez, his next steps to meet the city is Saturday, June 6th at Santana. Michelle Dubois' campaign kickoff, that's going to take place June 9th at the VFW Post, 1046 on 283 North Quincy Street. Blue Hill Gang listening party, that's June 10th, 8 to 12, 986 Blue Hill Ave. The Juneteenth celebration put on by the African American Association, that's Juneteenth, on June 13th, 11 to 4. Father's Day, Estrada Near Music, One Team, One Dream, that's on Father's Day at the Patukas Park. And then Patrick Roth campaign kickoff in Brockton. Patrick Roth is running. His campaign kickoff is coming up on the 13th, I also believe. And then Family Fun with Music. Hey, June 25th is when this ends, 3:30 to 4:30 at the library. Children 0 to 6 years old. Brockton Middle School football signups. Those are taking place. Sign up now because the school season will be back around September. So get your kids signed up. Boston Brothers Foundation. They have a motorcycle ride on July 25th. Those are the two brothers who were killed in that tragic car accident years ago. And then my ride, Slingshot for Shriners, takes place on August 1st. That's all of our slingshots riding through the city of Boston to raise money for Shriners. Broken Chains Car Show, that's August 22nd. And then we have the Boston Pizza Festival, September 19th to the 20th at City Hall. Brockton Paint Night, 7 to 9 at the Enzo Gallery. And then Brockton's Magic Moment to give away a trip for a family to go to Disney. We're looking for people to step up. This is the last week to donate money so we can send a family off to Disney. And as I said, I'm going to close out the show with this video from ABC David Muir News covering this thing about the Trumps. But Dave and everybody out there who's watching the show, Chris Gagney, Margaret, everybody out there, Edward from Liberia, man, thank you for all tuning in. And then my guest, Mike, coming on at the last minute to talk about this story, man. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, can I throw one more thing out there?
Yeah, sure.
I could have mentioned the governor race. And, I know Governor Healy. There's people in here, they're very polarized, especially some people who are Trump supporters and stuff, very polarized about her. But I will tell you that she is with labor. She is a person that you can talk and reason with, even if you don't agree. And we have endorsed her. And she is the right person for Massachusetts. And I know that there's, there's a growing group of people out there, especially some of the MAGA world, that want her out. But understand that the two Republican candidates, one of them is Brian Shortsleeve, who literally tried to destroy the MBTA and caused a lot of damage there under the Baker administration, and the other one is a MAGA. And so if that's the route you want to go, then he's your candidate. But I will tell you right now that the damage that's being done in this country, that's not the direction we have to go. So the Machinist Union has endorsed Maura Healey. She's been a pleasure to work with. She installed one of the greatest GMs we've had at the MBTA. And she has been a big help with the App Drivers Union in implementing the law that we had passed through the ballot question. So, we would encourage people to cast a vote for Maura Healey if you're listening.
Nice. And one last question before we get out of here and I play this video. To be honest, I got to ask you this real quick because it popped into my head. When I was at the MBTA, one of the biggest events at the MBTA that we had to put all hands on deck for, we didn't F around with, was tall ships. When tall ships came to town, all hands on deck. You couldn't even take vacation time. Vacation that week was closed out for anybody. You couldn't take no vacation. What are you guys doing for FIFA? That's 2 months of friggin'...
There's been a lot of work involved in FIFA. We could do a whole show about that. So really? I've been, as I'm also the executive vice president of service and industry and the AFL-CIO, and we have been working with the state and local governments to make sure that there is a lot of union, or most of these companies, if not all of them, are unionized, and that there is, we've been coordinating with the state and how to make sure that there's great transportation there, vendors, safety, and so on. So there's a lot of work behind there, and the MBTA is very much in the forefront of that. So I'm talking in a 10,000-foot view, but the MBTA is very much involved in that, and all hands on deck there too. So it's been a coordinated effort through labor unions, community groups, and the government, the state government, to try to make sure this is a smooth operation and that people can enjoy the games.
Do they have kind of a projection of what they think they're going to see daily for ridership? Have they kind of figured that out? They're probably not going to know
some same numbers, but those numbers kind of vary from day to day. So I'd lie if I gave you some number, because I mean, also those tickets were going at like $2,000 a pop, and I don't know that they're staying up that high. That some of the numbers are dropping on the tickets. So I think that it varies. They're it's going to be a crazy scene, and I think.
See, I feel like if you're coming here from another country, the price don't matter. I think that's what I feel. I feel like when you go to these games, there's not going to be your buddy from Westboro or your friend from Canton at the game like you do at the Patriots game. I don't think you're going to see that. I think that stadium is going to be 90% international fans and 10% local fans. That's just me. I think that's what you're going to see. If you can afford to come here for the FIFA game, you've already bought your ticket. So
remember the tall ships when we were working at the T. I think that the number was that they moved 1 million people.
Yeah,
and that was back then, right? So, those are the sort of numbers we're talking, and I don't think that your average person understands how difficult that is, and the coordination that is required to get that done and make sure that people are safely moved from one place to another. And God forbid if there's a breakdown, contingency plans, service trucks, tow trucks, everything, all hands on deck. I don't think that people understand it. They take it for granted. It means that the people running the transportation are doing their job, that if we go unnoticed and things run smooth, you might not be getting the credit for things run smooth, but that's a compliment all in itself, that if people aren't recognizing the work behind transportation, then we made it look seamless.
So. Yeah, and just to give people a kind of heads up before we head out of here, the last tall ships that I worked with you guys, 264 was in the trucks down at Black Falcon Terminal, and I remember this was one of the hottest of the events. And I remember that they had designated people just to get water to the mechanics on scene and any of the people who were there, just telling people what buses to get on because it was free service. You just pretty much point in and answer questions, but I remember there was a huge contingency of people just to get water because it was 101 degrees that week.
And they don't realize how involved we are. So if you also remember that the water truck, that the city of Boston has water trucks going around supplying people water, drinking water. Those are our members of Local Lodge 100. So, so people don't understand all the work behind the scenes. And I think that when they take a glimpse behind the curtain, they realize what an operation it is and how difficult it is to perform seamlessly. So when you have no incidents, the whole team is functioning at a really great efficiency and so on. So I think that being unnoticed is a compliment all on its own.
There we go. So let me get into this video. Hold tight here real quick. Let me get into this video for everybody, and then SpongeBob will take us home. But here's the video from ABC, David Muir, talking about the IRS not having the ability to audit the Trump crime family is what I call it. So if you guys can call what you want to call it, I'm calling it the Trump crime family. That's how I feel it is, and that's what it is, and I'm sticking with that. So here we go. Here's the video.
Turn now to President Trump and his taxes and the extraordinary order now from the Justice Department, now barring the IRS from investigating President Trump, his sons, and their companies. It comes as the Trump administration also defends tonight the Justice Department's new fund, paid for by taxpayers, $1.8 billion, to compensate Trump allies, including some January 6 defendants. Here's Jonathan Karl.
Tonight, in an extraordinary move, the Justice Department declared the IRS is, quote, forever barred and precluded from auditing President Trump, his family, his oldest sons, and their companies, or pursuing any claims for past actions. It's part of the unprecedented settlement after President Trump dropped his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. The deal was orchestrated by the head of the DOJ, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is Trump's former personal attorney. Blanche faced tough questions on Capitol Hill today.
You're the president's consigliere.
Your perspective is completely wrong, Senator.
Well,
respectfully.
I think the facts will prove me right.
The president's settlement also creates a nearly $1.8 billion fund, taxpayer money, to pay for Trump allies or anyone else who claims they were mistreated by the Biden Justice Department. It's a group that includes the roughly 600 people charged with obstructing or assaulting police on January 6th.
Will individuals who assaulted Capitol Hill police officers be eligible for this fund?
Well, as it makes plain, anybody
just let me know if they're eligible for the fund.
Anybody in this country is eligible to apply if they believe they're a victim of weaponization.
At the White House, I followed up with Vice President J.D. Vance.
I assume you're not going to apply and you don't think you should get money out of this fund. So isn't it just as easy to say that people that attacked police officers should not get taxpayer money from this fund?
Well, look, John, we're not trying to give money to anybody who attacked a police officer. We're trying to we're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them. They were mistreated by the legal system. We do have people who were accused of attacking law enforcement officers. That doesn't mean that we're going to completely ignore some of the claims that they're going to make.
It's a very complex building.
It comes as Republicans are trying to set aside another $1 billion in taxpayer money for President Trump's new ballroom. They say it's for security. The president taking reporters on a tour of the construction site today.
Being paid for out of pocket, but why is Congress in pocket? Explain sort of the difference.
Well, they're not. The Congress is approving. Yeah, Congress is approving money for security. Some of it may go here for additional security. I don't know.
Back to that $1.8 billion fund, some of which could go to people who attacked the Capitol building on January 6th. It's not just Democrats who don't like it. Senate Republican leader John Thune said today, quote, "I am not a big fan."
John Karl with us. John, thank you.
Well, see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, yeah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine, but your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I make it, this on repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, but y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak assholes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip, I don't need that shit, I got my own now. I get hurt, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's whobazoo.com.
Enter website.